Hey guys, this is Shane Butler with Lemon Street Music, and I'm going to be making some videos over the next little while to help guitar players become more intentional about being creative on their instruments. So this lesson is just a real brief lesson. I'm going to try to keep music theory out of it as much as possible, and just kind of give us some ideas about how to be more creative. So everybody should know that a 1-4-5 chord progression in a major key means that you're playing 3 major chords built off of the 1st, 4th, and 5th scale degree of a major scale. So if you're a guitar player and you don't know that, you should research that and figure out what I am talking about. If you do know that, then let's move forward. So basically, we're going to take the major chords in a key of A major, for instance. So we're going to play an A major chord. We're going to go to the 4 chord, which would just be 4 notes up from A, so A, B, C, D, and we would make it a D major chord because the 4 chord is always major. And then we would go to the 5 chord, which would be 1 note above that, E major. Okay, and just 3 major chords in the key of A. Nothing too fancy about that. In fact, it's a little dull. Or can be. Maybe we want to go outside of that. So what kind of things can we do to embellish that, make it a little bit more interesting? One of the things that's just really easy to do is to make those chords suspended chords, which just means you kick out the 3rd scale degree and you add the 4th or the 2nd scale degree. So in this case, we're going to add the 2nd scale degree of each chord instead of the 3rd. And it's going to give it a different sound. So instead of playing an A major chord, we're going to play an A2 chord. So we're just going to lift our 3rd finger off of the C sharp to an open B, and we're going to play this chord. Automatically a richer, more interesting sounding chord. Then we'll go to a D2, so we're just going to make a D major chord and lift our 3rd finger off of the, it's actually our 2nd finger, off of the F sharp to an open E. And now we have a D sus chord. And most guitar players know these things, they're doing it, but they're not being intentional about it and working through different keys and intentionally knowing where those sus2 and sus4 chords are to purposefully make their chord progression sound a little bit more interesting. Let's do an E sus. This one's a little different. An E sus chord, if we do a sus2, we have to kick out the E and raise it up to an F sharp. And we don't want to have a G sharp in it because that would be an add 2 chord instead of a sus2 chord. So we're going to change our fingering a little bit. Instead of playing an E major here, we're going to play our 1st finger on the B note of the A string, our 3rd finger on the F sharp of the D string, and our pinky on the B note of the G string. So we have an E, a B, an F sharp, another B, an E, and a B, giving us the sus2 sound that we're after. So a really rich sounding cool chord and not difficult to play. Okay, so let's just put that 1-4-5 chord progression together using all sus2 chords, okay? It's a much cooler sounding chord progression, or at least it's different. It's not poppy, peppy, happy major, but it's still in the major key family. It's just got a little bit more of a richness and a substance to it. So what I would encourage you to do is be intentional and go into all of the different keys, major keys, and experiment and find the sus2s for each one of those chords. For instance, if you go to the key of G major, you add the 2 here and you've got this sound. The A note on the G string, 2nd fret, and it just gives it that subtle, sweet sound. If we go to a C chord, we could raise the E note on the D string to the 4th fret, excuse me, the 3rd fret, an F note, and now we've got the sus sound here, a C sus. That's a cool sound. Back to the 1 chord, the G sus2. To the 4 sus2. There's the sus2 and the 5. 5 chord, D, sus2. Back to home. So anyway, that's just a real simple way to make your major chord progressions sound a little richer, just and not quite so major-ish, I guess you could say. It gives it a richer sound. So experiment that. Take that into all the different keys and play your 1-4-5 chord progressions as sus2 chords instead of major chords. So hopefully you enjoyed that lesson. Hopefully that will impart something to you that you can experiment with and add to your playing. Thanks again for checking us out, and have a great day.